Keeping your customers for longer can double, triple, or quadruple the amount of money you make without acquiring any new customers, without needing to pitch or do lead gen or anything like that. I've run a software consultancy for 3 years. My first client was 4 figures. My latest client was 6 figures. Learning to keep clients was a hard and long journey. I have lost many clients because my service wasn't good enough at the start, and I've hired many agencies myself throughout this process, and the only ones that I've stopped working with has been because they have just not been good enough at the service that I hired them to do. This video is about how to get your customers to stop churning, and it's specifically focused on how to make sure your service always meets their requirements. For me personally, the way that I got to here was a really simple process, and I'm just going to walk straight through that. So the first step is you want to ask your clients, what is the one problem that they hired you to solve? So just go to your clients and ask them, if there's only one reason that you hired me for, what is that reason? And usually the answer is pretty simple, and you might know it already, but it's good to just double check with them anyway. Let me tell you a story about this point. There's an agency that I worked with for a very long time, and I hired them to do one particular thing. And one time the founder came to me and said, hey, we want to upgrade our service, we want to make it way better, we're going to add this. And I told him, like, listen, that's all great, but the last thing is the only thing that actually adds value to me. So, the rest is nice to have, but I'd really focus on that last one, just for me at least. The thing that he missed is he was optimizing his service, thinking about how he can make it better, but he didn't think about what's the one fundamental reason that I hired him and how can he focus on that. He was just adding like pretty things around it. But the reality is more help solving the one problem that I hired him to fix is way more useful and way more impactful for me as a client. It's really important that you pinpoint exactly what problem you are helping people solve, because that will allow you to make your service way better, because you now know what to focus on. And you always ask yourself, does this new extra thing that I'm doing contribute to solving this problem better? If the answer is not yes, then you probably shouldn't spend resources on it. The only exception for that, I would say, is if it's extra communication that reduces the uncertainty, that is always worth investing in. And I've made other videos about that before. The second point of this framework is essentially you want to make sure that you're always meeting your client standards or going above them. I have another story around this point. I hired an agency one time to help me with something. I thought they were pretty good, and I paid a premium to hire them. I went out of my way, paid some extra money, and I thought I was going to get a really good service. Over time, I realized the service they were providing me was below average, well below average. And I was really frustrated because I expected this and they delivered below that line. And so I was always frustrated every single time because I was trying to pull their work up to my standards. They were doing lots of other things around, client care, and they were like trying to send me a nice welcome package and whatever. But that is all meaningless to me because the one thing that I paid them to do, they weren't doing right. The way that you guarantee that that doesn't happen is essentially you want to make sure that your standards are always that of your client or higher. The only thing it comes down to is how much attention do you pay to every single last detail. In your area of expertise, you should be able to pay more attention to different details, things that other people notice. Like an interior designer could probably walk in this house and tell me all kinds of things that are wrong with this and the plants or whatever. They will be able to notice things way faster than I do because they've been doing this for a while. Like one of the top interior designers in the world, they'll be able to identify things like that because they just have this eye for detail because they've been doing it for so long. And so if you want to have higher standards than your clients, you have to be more attentive to the details than they are. And if they are more attentive, then you need to increase your attentiveness to details or you will lose them. That is fundamentally what it takes to have higher standards in them, which makes sure that you always deliver a great service. Anytime that you have less attention to detail than they do, they'll be able to see the problems more than you can. If they can see the problems in what you're doing more than you can, they're going to be disappointed in your service and they're going to churn. They're not going to give you referrals. They're going to talk bad about you. If anybody asks them about your service, they're always going to say, no, this is terrible. Don't hire this agency. And you're going to lose a bunch of potential customers. And so that's a really, really costly mistake. And that does happen. That's fine, especially kind of in your first years of business, but you want to try and correct that as soon as possible and work to have higher and higher standards every single project. Every single time you should have more attention to the small details, everything like that. I can't recommend that enough. I think it's a really underrated piece of advice, honestly, but I get that it takes work and people don't like to pay attention, but that's really what it takes at the end of the day if you want to have an outstanding service. I think in the long run, that's really important to build a really big business. It's the ability to consistently make sure things are good, making sure you have more attention to detail than your clients do, and making sure you can implement that consistently, right? One project that's amazing and then the next one is horrible is not really going to be able to do that for your business. The third part of this is basically you have to figure some things out yourself. Brainstorm how you can solve that one problem that you were paid for even better than you already do. Can you do it faster? Can you communicate it more? Can you show more planning, documentation? What other little things can you do that don't necessarily take loads more effort but might add value to the client? It usually comes from asking them whether, hey, I have this idea. Would this add value to you in solving your problem or not? Just go up to them and ask. This open conversation with clients about how to improve your service will do massive things in terms of your client relationships as well, because it'll show that you're actively trying to do more for them, and then you'll get referrals from those actions because the clients will be like, oh, these guys are really paying attention. I would absolutely refer my friends to you. And the last part of this, I think this is a video I've made like separately, but improving communication. If you communicate more often, usually that means customers feel more at ease and more relaxed because they feel less uncertainty about what's going on with your service. And so that is something that's also helpful to avoid losing them to churn. To be honest, I know that none of what I'm saying is like particularly rocket science, but so many people skip on the basics. They don't realize that this is what it takes to keep a client for way, way longer. My first projects were like, I think 2 to 3 months usually. Some of my latest clients have been with me for over a year. And so like it really makes a big difference when it comes to client retention and essentially lifetime value of clients. You are losing out on so much money if you keep losing customers because of the quality of your services. It's literally free money that you're leaving on the table. What I mean by that is like you have no cost of acquisition. You don't need to pay for ads. You don't need to wait or do meetings or pitch new people. You don't need to get new clients. You can just keep them for longer and double, triple, quadruple the amount of money you make literally just by keeping them for longer, because they keep paying you more and more, and or they keep coming back, or they keep giving you referrals, whatever it is. It's free money that you're leaving on the table if you keep losing them to churn. On that note, leave a comment if you have any questions about anything. I record every day and I try and read those comments and make videos out of any good comments that I read.